Hello, this lesson is going to cover lesson 1.3, which is the second day of solving equations. In the last lesson, lesson 1.2, we started on equations. In this lesson, they're going to be kind of one step up there, one step more difficult. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lesson. So in this lesson, there's two really important things that we need to remember. One of them is what I have here in blue, and it is whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other side. We've been doing that, so we're familiar with that, but just don't forget that. Secondly, on this in this lesson, we're going to have variables on both sides, and that can get confusing sometimes. And so your goal is to gather all of the variables on one side of the equal sign and all of the numbers or the constants on the other side. And I'm going to put an S in there. All the variables on one side of the equal sign, all the numbers on the other side. And so if we look, for instance, at number 1, we have variables on each side. And that, again, can get a little bit confusing. I'm also in this video only going to cover certain ones, just like I did last time. So I'm going to cover number 1, number 2, number 4, number 6, and number 8, and number 9. So again, on this page, I'm covering 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. The other 3, I'm going to make a different video to cover those. So let's go ahead and get started on number 1. All right, so we have to keep in mind, we want to keep the variable on one side. You really could choose either one to be your variable side. Frequently, I like to keep my variables on the left and my numbers on the right, but really you could go either way. So in other words, I'm going to mention that. I'm going to keep my x's on this side of the equal sign, and then I have my equal sign, and I'm going to keep my numbers on this side. In other words, as I look at this, my negative x is on the wrong side. I need to move it over. Because it's negative, I need to add that x to the other side. And so when I add those together, that gives me a 3x. So my first step was to move the negative x to the other side. And to do that, I added it. So I add those together, I get 3x from there. Now I need to divide by 3 to get rid of the number. Remember, the x's go on the left, the numbers go on the right. So we need to get rid of that 3. And so I'm going to divide both sides, divide by 3. Now, when I divide those 3's cancel because 3 divided by 3 is 1. And so I get x is equal to negative 2. So that's the main point, is keep your x's on one side, the numbers on the other side. I personally think it's easier to keep the x's or the variables on the left side, but really you could do either. All right, this is a little bit confusing. This is maybe one of the more confusing ones because all we have are y's. We don't have any numbers. And so what do? Well, we're still going to do the same thing. I like to keep my y's on the left, and I like to keep my numbers on the right. There are no numbers, but I'm going to subtract this 7y because it's on the wrong side. Okay, negative 3y plus 7y is a negative 10y. Add these together, and you get a 0. That's okay. Some people kind of freak out when they get a 0. A 0 is a number. You can do that. That's fine. That's not a problem. So our first step was to subtract the 7 from both sides. Our second step is going to be to divide by negative 10. We have to get rid of it. We have to get that y all by itself. So we're going to have to divide that negative 10 on each side. We divide that. Negative 10 divided by negative 10 is 1. So we get 1y, or just y. All right, what's 0 divided by negative 10? Try your calculator. What's 0 divided by negative 10? It is 0. Any 0 divided by anything is always just 0. So our answer is y equals 0. This might be one where we consider checking our answer. Okay, to check it, what I do is I take that 0, I plug it in for this y, and I plug it in for this y. So that's what I did here. I plugged in the 0. What's negative 3 times 0? What's 7 times 0? Does 0 equal 0? Yep, that's the right answer. So it's a little bit strange because it's a 0, but it is correct. All right, number 4. I'm going to do the same thing. I want to keep my x's over on the left. I want to have my numbers over on the right. So I need to move my x. I'm going to move my 9x. Now this is going to take a couple of steps, and some people like to do it in one step. And if you're good at that, you can do that. That's fine. But I'm going to take it in 2 steps. You actually, in that first step, you have 4 choices. You could have subtracted 9x, you could have added 12, you could have subtracted 8, or you could have subtracted 4x. I decided to go with subtracting 9x. I like to start with my x's and get them where they're supposed to be first. That's why I did that. Okay, so I subtracted the 9x. The next step is going to be to move the numbers. I have an 8 over here. It's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be on the other side, the number side. It's not on the number side. So I'm going to subtract that from each side. And again, be careful with your negatives. Negative and a negative is going to be a negative 20. Negative 12 minus 8 is negative 20. If you're not sure, use your calculator. Last step here is going to be divide by negative 5 because I want that x all by itself. I don't want any other stuff with it. I just want a plain old x. And so I do that. Negative divide by negative is a positive. And again, use your calculator if you need to. Okay, so here are my 3 steps, and I get x equals 4. Let's go on to number 6. If you look at that, what do you think you need to do first? My first step is going to be to distribute. I see that parentheses with an adding and subtracting inside. I see a number outside. That means I need to distribute. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to have 3g minus 9. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to have 12 minus 4g. Okay. I wanted to decide which side is my g side and which side is my numbers side. So I'm going to have my g's over here. So I'm going to add 4g to both sides. I feel like I'm talking about a cell phone thing. So 3g and 4g is the all new 7g. No one has 7g, but there it is. Add these, they drop off, and we get a 12. So I'm going to bring down that 12. Okay, so first step was to distribute. Second step was to add the g to both sides. Third step is going to be to take the number. And that's kind of always going to be the pattern that I follow. So like on number 4, I dealt with my variable first, and then I dealt with my number, and then I divided. I'm going to do that here. I'm going to deal with my variable. After my variable, I'm going to deal with my number. In this case, I need to add that 9 to move it over. And again, if you need to use your calculator, that's fine. 12 plus 9, that's 21. So that was, what did I do? I added 9 to both sides. My fourth step is going to be divide by 7 because I want to get that g all by itself. And I use my calculator and I take 21 divided by 7 and I get an answer of g equals 3. Okay, how about number 8? Number 8 has decimals in it. I'm going to erase some of this so we can see it a little bit better, but number 8 has decimals in it, so we probably want to go ahead and get out our calculator. If you have not gotten out your calculator yet, why don't you go ahead and do that for this one? Okay, I decided instead of erasing that, we just move them, so I've still got them there. But, all right, we need a calculator, and we're going to distribute because I see parentheses, and I see adding and subtracting inside the parentheses, and I see a number outside. So when I multiply 6 times 1.5, I get 9x minus 6 is equal to 5 times 2.2. Use my calculator. It's going to be 11x plus 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, I'm going to gather my x's over here, gather my numbers over here. So I subtract 11x. So my 11x drops off, my 15 comes down, my negative 6 comes down, and 9 minus 11x is negative 2x. Okay, so first step was to move the x. Second step is to move the numbers. All right, so 6 is on the wrong side. 6 needs to be on the number side. So we need to move that 6. So we get a negative 2x is equal to, I add this on my calculator, I get 21. I'm going to divide by the constant, the number. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. And I get x equals, all right, once again, leave it as an improper fraction. Please do not give me a mixed number, and please do not give me a decimal. Just leave it as an improper fraction. One thing I will tell you, though, is a couple things. If you have what I have here, so I kind of wrote it as a negative 21 over 2. That's the exact same thing as a negative 21 over 2, which is also the exact same thing as 21 over negative 2. All three of those mean the same thing. And in the problem up above, like the step up above, the negative was actually on the bottom, and then I didn't really think about it, and I just put it on the top. The reason I did that is it doesn't matter. It could be on the top, it could be out front, or it can be in the bottom. Any one of those is okay. All right, last one of this video is going to be number 9, describe and correct the error in the following work. Okay, we're going to have to look through this and see what is wrong. Sometimes the easiest part to do, or the easiest way to approach this, is to try the problem. So like on number 1, if I was going to do this problem, because it does say we have to do it anyway, it says correct the error. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So on the left, I should have 2v minus 10 is equal to, all right, let me tell you about this negative sign. Negatives also distribute. It's like a -1. And so we distribute it. And so we get a -3v minus 5. Okay, let's just pretend we're doing the problem. Well, oh, look, I can already see what the mistake is. Do you see that? Right here, that should be a minus. They forgot to distribute the negative. So it says describe and correct it. Well, in just a second, I'm going to describe it. And what I'm going to describe it as is they forgot to distribute the negative. But since I've started the problem, I'm going to go ahead and finish the problem anyway. I'm going to choose my v's to go on this side, my left side, the numbers to go on the right side. So I'm going to add that 3v to both sides. That's going to give me 5v minus 10 is equal to -5. I moved my v. Next thing, I want to move my number. And so -5 plus 10 is +5. And I get v equals 1. So now they had asked me to describe it. So I'm going to take a second to describe it. I'm going to type it because my handwriting on this board is not always so great. Okay, so here I wrote it down here. I say in step 2, they forgot to distribute the negative sign. So here I fixed it, and here I described it, and so I'm done. Okay, so that is the first video for lesson 1.3. And again, some of you who are good at equations, that might be enough to get you started. But for most of us, we probably need to watch the second video. The second video is going to cover those ones that we skipped. So it's going to be numbers 3, 5, and 7.